All right, welcome everyone. It's good to have you. Alex Nieves, are you in the house? Because Alex is working on the live streaming. So we are doing a streaming of this event. I have to disclose this to you, okay? So your image is really not going to go anywhere, but Mr. O'Malley's image will go worldwide. I'm Don Gibson, Dean of the O'Malley School of Business. Hopefully most of you have seen me at least. And we have a great opportunity today. It's my great pleasure to welcome Tom O'Malley to speak with you here today. For some of you who know this, 3 years ago, we welcomed Tom and his wife, Mary Alice, to the naming ceremony to announce the unveiling of the O'Malley School of Business. Welcome, Brother Robert. Sure, no, you know, spirituality next to punctuality. So, yes, actually you were pretty close. So yes, we're going to meet that O'Malley, just so students you know. I guess you've seen his pictures a few times. But since that time, we've begun to see what can happen when you bring together a world-class business leader with excellent faculty, supportive staff, and strong students. You get a lot of enthusiasm and a distinctive business school. You challenge students with rigorous academics and a competitive mindset in a good way. You turn classrooms into incubators of business experience. And then we try to provide you with leadership opportunities and immerse you in a diverse community. Take a look at who we are today with strong opinions. And that's a great way to test out ideas. And Mr. O'Malley is going to have a lot of ideas today. I can just note from the outset, you can't surprise him with a question, okay? So as you hear him talk, if you have a question, it has to be, you know, something he should answer, but he'll be able to answer the question. Let me just put it that way. Now, so we also are not only a strong business school, but we do it in a Lasallian way. We emphasize ethics and integrity. And I think that will be a theme of this talk as well. So who is Tom O'Malley? Well, he's a graduate of St. Peter's High School on Staten Island, where he worked during his college years in jobs from taxi and school bus driver to lifeguard to pay his way through Manhattan College. Does this sound familiar to some of you in this room? I imagine. Graduating in 1963. I did not grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, O'Malley told the New York Times. I grew up with a stickball bat in my hand. After experience in the Army, he began his business career at Fibro, an international trading's, Philip Brothers, international trading company, starting in the mailroom and becoming a highly successful commodities trader. So get that, students? So you can start here, but take the opportunities, right? So after 10 years in the company's European operations, he successfully ran the energy business. And energy would continue to be a theme, next taking on executive roles at the investment banking firm Salomon Incorporated, becoming vice chairman of Salomon and chief executive of the oil trading division. And then what followed were a range of leadership roles in energy. One observer commented that Thomas O'Malley created the modern independent refining industry. He transformed Tosco into one of the most successful trading firms and the largest independent refinery in the US. He later took Premcor public in 2002 and began a strategy to turn the firm around. The St. Louis Business Journal noted that O'Malley was revered by Wall Street investors for his Midas touch in the oil industry. And he's not done transforming business. He's still busy, as you're going to hear. He may let us know about his current foray into real estate development in the US and Germany, and his work with a company, or maybe more than one company, to develop manufacturing capacity for approved pharmaceuticals in the US. So he never stopped learning. But legendary business acumen is not the whole story about Mr. O'Malley. Tom does something quintessentially Lasallian. He gives and gives and gives. His family's philanthropic activities include support of Catholic educational institutions at both the secondary and college level. college, he certainly has the Midas touch. He's the largest financial contributor in the college's history. We might pause for it. So there's a lot to learn from Tom O'Malley. Tom, we thank you for being with us, for taking the time to speak with us today, and we look forward to this opportunity to hear about how to develop a successful career and a successful life. So welcome to Tom O'Malley.
Thank you very much. With regard to questions on moral or spiritual issues, I'm going to defer to Trevor. Don, thank you very much for the introduction, and thanks to all of you for coming here today. Many of you picked up the book, Road Less Traveled, by Ed Hajem. I often thought years ago that I didn't have the best upbringing, and unfortunately that silver spoon was missing. Then I read this book and I thought to myself, man, compared to this guy, it was absolutely fantastic, my upbringing. Ed, who is a good friend of my wife and I, and his wife Barbara, was a legend on Wall Street, had an incredible career, was chairman of the board at the University of Rochester, served in the Navy for 5 years, did it all. That's a book worth reading. Now, one thing all of you, if you're going to get into a leadership position in the future, should learn is that any speech that lasts more than about 18 minutes results in slumber. So that's all you're going to get, and then we'll have a question and answer period. That's much more interesting. I did prepare for this, and say that you're a fortunate group. I want to start off by saying we are all fortunate. We're here in the United States. It's a democracy. Democracies are messy. Our government doesn't always function exactly the right way. It hasn't for a couple hundred years, but we're here. It's a capitalist society. And, there are those who would like to change to a bit more of a socialist society. All I can tell you is I spent a good part of my career traveling around the world, and about 5 years of intense time in Eastern Europe when they had the wall. And a funny thing to note about those societies, the kind of socialist and communist, nobody was trying to get in. Most of the people were trying to leave town. They were trying to get out. And how lucky we are. Secondly, you're in New York City. There's some bumps and bruises in this town. I was born here, raised here, and I gained something that perhaps all of you will gain. Certainly, if you spend any time in the city, you will. You'll become street smart if you're not street smart already. And if you want to succeed, you can be some kind of brilliant academic. But I tell you what, you better be street smart. The third thing, and this is Manhattan College, this is an advertisement for Manhattan. It's big enough that you can attract good faculty and good students. But it's small enough that you're not a number. I've got a bunch of grandchildren. Some of them go to college. I think they're a little stupid. They went to other colleges where they're a number. But they're kind of lost in this, 8, 10, 12,000 people. This is a great place. You're in the greatest country. You're absolutely in the greatest city in the country. And in my opinion, I wouldn't call this the Harvard of the Bronx. I'd call it better than that. So the roadmap, according to me, how did a somewhat mediocre student, a kid from no special background, manage to succeed? I thought about it in preparing for this, and I realized that I succeeded for a whole series of points. And then I thought, and the people I've run into, whether it was the old chairman of Exxon, Lee Raymond, the current guy who runs Shell, Ben Van Buren, the guy running Chevron, Mike Worth, there's an oil influence here. They had points in common, and as I looked at them, it was important. And then I thought about some people that I graduated with. Gene McGrath, he became the chairman and CEO of Con Edison, and when he was considered the top guy in the U.S. electrical power industry. How about Ray Kelly? I remember Gene when I was there. I think he was born an engineer. Ray, I met him at Manhattan College, and we didn't have such a luxurious room as this. And we were sitting around chatting, and he talked about what you want to do when you get out of college. And he said he wanted to become a policeman. I said, "You're nuts. I came here so I don't have to be a policeman. Everybody in my family was a policeman." He said, no, he would rise to the top. Jack Newhouser, probably you don't know his name very well. He was the recent president of St. Michael's College. Before that, he was dean of facilities up at Boston College. He always wanted to be an academic. He got there. And then a guy who's really done well, probably the best-selling author, I almost think, in history, James Patterson. Okay, we've become friendly with them. All four of these people we know socially, and it's very funny. They all had similar things. So, what was the first thing that they had? They were focused. They decided when they were in college what they wanted to do. They didn't wait till 2 months before graduation. Gee whiz, I think I should interview with so-and-so. No, they went after it early in the game. It doesn't matter what drives you. What drove me? I was poor, and in my caddying career, I saw rich. And I thought to myself, that's better. Therefore, I want to make a lot of money. And so money tended to drive me, money and adventure. But, it can be money, it can be power, it can be science, it can be helping others, it can be the environment, the arts, teaching, the military. Look at the man we just lost, Colin Powell. Probably one of the best people in government in the past 50 years. What an extraordinary person. I got to meet him 2 or 3 times. Graduated from CCNY. By the way, when CCNY, at that time, when he graduated, a Phi Beta Kappa from CCNY was better than any other school in the United States. He rose up. He did something special. Lots of professions. But please decide early. And since you're in New York, you can get a part-time job or something to get started in that industry early on. Don't sit around and wait. You're crazy if you do. Have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you're not going to get anywhere. Now, look, if plan A doesn't work, go to plan B. Plan B doesn't work, go to plan C. But have a plan. Don't be random. Don't just, oh, well, leave it for whatever. This is not a moral Catholic Lassallean point. But it's funny how it fits with that. Be a stable platform, all right? No drugs, not too much booze, good health habits, You better exercise. It's another one. I know the church is against divorce, but divorce is very expensive. I will celebrate my 57th anniversary. I have a great partner. Find one partner you possibly can. A messy life leads to a messy career. One other thing, and I should point this out to all of you. Everybody here is active on the internet. God knows what you're posting. I've run 4 or 5 public companies. You think we can't get access to some of the things a potential employee posts? Trust me. When we would try and hire anybody in a serious position, we want to know that they're stable. Okay? So please, please, please be careful. One other point on the legal front, and this is interesting. If you receive an email in business, you are deemed to have read it. If you receive a letter that somebody wrote, nobody writes letters anymore, but what the hell? They can't legally prove you've actually read it unless it's registered return receipt requested. I ran 4 of the public companies without having an email address in the company. And that was protected. So I never had to go to jail or anything like that. Very good. Never stop learning. Everything evolves. In the question and answer period, maybe we can get to some new things that I'm doing. But don't be afraid to change, okay? It's essential for you to move on through your life. Be honest with others. I'll give you a little example. I had, at the suggestion of an investment bank, made a substantial investment in a savings and loan up in Massachusetts. And they put me on the board, and I went up, and after about the second meeting, I thought something smelled bad there. And I had a friend who was the head of the Home Loan Bank Board in Boston, Dick Siren. And I went to him, and I said, something's wrong here. And he said, would I be agreeable to have people put in the company? And I said, yeah, sure. And wound up 13 people went to jail from that bank. I had a partner who had invested with me. I couldn't tell him what was going on. I went to the guy and I said, I'm going to take you out of your investment, even though I knew I was going to lose it. I took him out. The guy couldn't believe it when he found out what happened. And it's funny, I then went to this company, Tosco, and I started to buy a big position in it. And I needed somebody to throw another $100 million into the pot. This guy, without another word, wrote the check. And he said he did it because I was honest. So honesty in everything you do is a pretty good idea. And I wouldn't break away from that. The points mentioned, those few points that I mentioned, pay some attention to them. Have an orderly life. Be careful what you do. Focus on something and go after it early. Now, one thing that's overlooked in our society and from my generation, remember, we went to school when there were no women here at Manhattan College. I think it's a vast improvement that we have women at Manhattan College. And I think women, if they don't already rule the world, in my family they do, they're going to wind up ruling the world. So you guys got to be careful. The military, everybody had to go into it in my generation. We had the draft. So you went to college, and then you got out, and you didn't have a reason anymore. And unfortunately, at that particular time, Vietnam was just starting up. I can say the following. Of all the formative experiences I had, basic training in the United States Army was extraordinary. It really changed my outlook on the country, on the people. It was exposure to a diverse group of people that really changed me as a person. I was in the reserve. I did wind up, for various reasons, spending a lot of my reserve time actively. They did transfer me from the United States Army to the Air Force, given the fact that I really didn't know how to fly. But to those of you who might consider a career, I can tell you I always gave preference to somebody who served. If somebody had served, they got a job before the next person who didn't. And it's amazing how many chief executives will tell you the same thing. So think about that. I would also tell you, take risks, okay? And what do I mean by risks? I worked for really an Orthodox Jewish company at the start of my career, and they had a position open in Germany. Now, if you were a Jewish person in the 1960s, there was one town you want to go to, it was Germany. And so being one of the only Irish Catholics in the whole company, I raised my hand and I said I'd go to Germany. I don't think I had traveled further than New Jersey by that time. So, and I didn't even, I didn't speak a word of German. Fortunately, today I do. And I took a risk, and it was a turning point in my career. And I think it brought up one other issue. Going to Europe, spending a huge amount of time in Eastern Europe, then spending a huge amount of time in the Middle East, in Africa, in Asia, everywhere. I don't know that there's a country I haven't visited at one point or another. Now, the future is going to require people to be multicultural. What does that mean? Well, how the hell did we wind up invading Iraq the second time? George I, he made a pretty good decision. He had to do that. And he had Colin Powell, who I think it's the last time we really won a war, and we won in about 3 days, which was a very favorable situation. How did we ever get the idea that we were going to bring our style of democracy to the Middle East? So George II goes rolling in there, knocks off Saddam. Saddam is the only wall between Iran and rolling out across the Middle East. I mean, since that happened, the last time the Iranians were on the Mediterranean was back when the Emperor Darius was running the show in Iran. That was about 3,000 years ago. And today, they're in Lebanon, they're in Syria, they're all over the place. We don't have good understandings of other cultures. We have to get there as a country, and you, in future of Manhattan College, that's students at Manhattan College, whatever chance you get to observe another culture, take it and learn it and be sensitive to it. And, whether you're talking about really different cultures in Europe, you go to the Middle East, spend time in Saudi Arabia, which I've spent a lot of time running around, and Iran, and Iraq, and Kuwait, the whole enchilada. You see, we have to act differently. Well, if you want to do business, and it's a world business today. It's whether you're doing business, you're doing education, you're doing healthcare, whether you're involved in the environment, you better understand other cultures. So, having said that, I can say, again, the advertisement for Manhattan College, and it's really true. If I think of what set my sails to this incredible, lucky career that I've had, and such a good life, and able to take care of my family in a proper way, able to support philanthropic efforts in a lot of areas. Manhattan College really was there for me, and they did a reasonable job. And that issue of the Lassallean approach to life, do good, okay? Help others, be serious about your life, give. That was important in everything that I ever did. On that note, I'd be very pleased to take whatever questions you have on any subject. As I said, faith and morals, I'm going to Brother Robert.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right. Who has a question for Mr. O'Malley?
We planted a couple. That has to be There's a question.
Sure.
Okay.
Hi there. My name is Alex. Nice to see you here. Thanks for coming. So in today's world, there's been a lot of technological changes happened at a light speed kind of direction. With that kind of change, do you have any tips on a way to maintain structure in that plan for our life? Right? You have a plan. How do you maintain that plan with so much change going on all the time? Thank you.
I think change is something we're going to live with in an incredible way. And I think we talk about change in the information system, but leave that aside for a moment. Most of the people in this room are part of the largest medical experiment in the history of the world. These vaccines are genetic vaccines, with the exception of Johnson & Johnson. The future of medicine is all tied up in those vaccines. The two companies that made them weren't making vaccines. They were working on cures for cancer, for diabetes, for a whole series of things. It wasn't Pfizer. Pfizer didn't have a damn thing to do with that. They put up the money. It was the German company that did it. Moderna was working on other stuff, and they were able to mobilize. Our family interests are heavily involved now in bioscience. And we have big investments in that area. It's tremendously interesting. It's, of course, driven by computer power. What we can learn for the future. If you went to something called the reinsurance industry, I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, but it's a huge industry. And I played golf this morning with the guy that ran Swiss Reinsurance. And they have futurists. And they spend a huge amount of money on them. They estimate that a child born today will live to 120 years, maybe 130. Why? Because they're really involved in this new wave. Pfizer also, they bought into the German company. They just bought into a company up in New Haven, Arvanis. They bought 7% of the shares, $400 million. And then they gave Arvanis $1 billion to complete the research on a genetic cure for breast cancer. The same, one drug, they gave him $1 billion. All right? The amount of money that's flowing into this area is staggering. So I pay attention to that, and I really try and absorb everything that's happening. You know, be interested in stuff. You know, get yourself involved. Read, you know, I don't know, I'm not sure what you read, but read something and learn something from it. Another question?
Very good. Another question? Yeah. Maybe say your name.
Hi, thank you for everything you said so far. I really appreciated listening to it. My name is Guadalupe Cabrera, and I'm a finance major here. So I was just wondering what aspects of business are going to be a real game changer in the next 10 years?
Well, you know, we can talk about the new currencies, Bitcoin, et cetera, et cetera. It's there, it's real, it's tied up with blockchain. Governments are scared to death of it. Why? What gives government power? And by the way, the people in Washington, you know, they often say we're doing this in the interest of the American people. They haven't met any of the American people in Washington. So they want power. You're going to see a complete change in our financial systems. Blockchain, which they talk about as a new thing, is not new at all. It's existed for a long time. Actually, if you looked at somebody like FedEx and their tracking of a package through every stage, and they were really quite amazing about that, that's going to be blockchain for the future. So is paper money really going to be out there in the future? I kind of doubt it. Obviously, criminal elements are a bit upset about that. And so that's where you see criminality creeping into this new type of currency. It's a way to hide black money. Okay, what is black money? Black money is payoffs. Okay, if you spend as much time in Europe as I did in the 1960s, you know, Italy always had the reputation as the most corrupt country. No, ladies and gentlemen, it was Sweden. They had a 90% tax rate. And therefore, everybody in Sweden had to figure out some other way to make money. So I think when you look at the changing financial environment, you know, we have this very, very famous guy, Warren Buffett in Berkshire Hathaway. And you say, my God, you know, we bought the shares, I don't know, 3 decades, 4 decades ago, and now you're a very wealthy person. Today's wealth and changes are really coming out of private equity. So you look at things like Blackstone and Apollo and the Carlyle Group and KKR. Yesterday, I hate to admit it, I played golf yesterday too, with a guy who's big in the SPAC business, you know, the special purpose. But the whole thing is revolving. Wall Street, the investment banker that we knew in the past, the way of raising money in the past, it's all changing. We had a real estate project we're doing down in Coconut Grove right now. And the bank wanted an extra, I don't know, $40 million of equity, which we really didn't feel like putting up. We crowdfunded it. In 7 hours, we were 3 times oversubscribed. So keep track of it. If you're going into the money game, if you're interested in money, I have one piece of advice. Go where the money is, okay? And so you figure that out and get in before you graduate. If you have to go to the damn mailroom and work in the mailroom, if you have to become a delivery person, if you have to bring them coffee, what's the difference? Do whatever you have to do. You want to get there, aim at it, do it. Other questions? These are non-controversial questions.
Yep.
Hello, my name is Ahmed. Thank you for coming. My question is, what is your advice on building soft skills and balance them out with technical?
On building what?
Soft skills.
I have hearing aids. No, I have a disability.
So what do you take on soft skills like communication, interacting with people versus wait, he's going to have more questions coming.
Yeah. So how to build soft skills and how important is it to balance them out with technical skills in terms of like higher senior positions and stuff like that?
That's really a good question. Look, at the end of the day, again, thinking back on the thing, a bunch of people who started in the 70s in the oil business, and that's when I started, and now I was in metals before that. I met them when I met Lee Raymond, who was, and Tillerson, who was the last couple chairman of Exxon, which was the biggest company, and Darren Woods, who's the guy there now. And being able to connect with these people was of great importance. Having a partner, my wife, Mary Alice, with the Saudis, we would have Saudi guests in our home, and these were people who in the kingdom, had high office, and they'd come with their wives. And by the way, they love to be outside the kingdom. This was their favorite place. And having a partner that can help you with that was a tremendous advantage. I mean, I can say my wife was a nurse who graduated from St. Vincent's in New York, but without her, for sure, I wouldn't be talking to you here today. So soft skills are a part of it. Now, there are many people who can't really develop those skills. Well, they better be very smart because the soft skills certainly count. They'll help you along the way. But remember one thing with the soft skills: honesty. Don't get yourself in a position. All businesses are small circles. You know, at the time I went in the oil business, leaving aside money and maybe armaments, was the biggest business in the world. But it's a small circle. And you need to keep a reputation. And how do you keep your reputation? Your word is your bond. You do what you say you're going to do. You don't cheat. Do it right. And don't lie, because you can't remember your lies. And that becomes very embarrassing at some moment in time. And we've all lied. I got that. And we've all made mistakes. And we've all done stupid things. I've done a lot of stupid things. Unfortunately, they didn't have the internet at the time, and nobody had a little camera that they could take a picture of me. So that was helpful. So very important. And then, of course, look, skills with technology. You're dead meat if you don't have the ability to operate in a technological world. That's the world we live in. You better have it. Other question? Only the front of the room is asking questions.
I'm coming back there.
How are you doing? Thank you for coming today. My name is BJ. I'm a senior business analytics major. I just want to get your thoughts on what your day-to-day habits are toward building a successful lifestyle. What do you do day-to-day to build those virtues and to ultimately that has guided your life throughout all these years?
Thank you. I think I'll tell you one thing that has been in my life when I was here and when I left here. I exercise every day. I work out every day. I still ski. I'm 80 years old. I ski, I kayak, I bike, I mountain hike. I keep active. Secondly, I learn every day. I don't read newspapers very much anymore because everything's electronic. So, whether it's a Bloomberg News Service or this or that, I keep up with things that way. I certainly don't watch any television, neither Fox nor NBC or ABC or any of that, because all you're getting is other people's opinions. You're not getting any facts. I've been careful about my health. So I want them to get rid of that picture, because in that picture I was 20 pounds heavier, and it's the new me. I want, a new picture.
Consider it gone.
So I think being healthy, learning, and that part about having a partner, I have to tell you, 57 years into a marriage, my wife and I talk and discuss every day. We don't agree on it. This is not a marriage where everything goes well every day. So I think just being healthy and learning. And I'll tell you one thing, I worked hard. When I get into something, I really got into it. I wanted to know everything. And that company I started out with, the first year and a half that I worked there before I left for Germany, I absolutely hated it. They were draconian in the way they operated. And I had no idea how much I was learning. And those lessons were important. And I almost guarantee you, all of you, you're not going to like your first job. But so what? Hang in there, do it, learn. You won't know how much you learn. Do something interesting. Have an adventure. Go somewhere. Go to another country. By the way, learn another language if you possibly can. And I don't mean Spanish, because where I live most of the time now in Florida, pretty much everybody speaks Spanish. But whether you're learning Mandarin, or I tell you what, a good one, which most people don't recognize, is German. You'd be absolutely amazed at how widespread German is in Europe. You have Germany, you have Austria, you have Switzerland, most of the East Bloc. When I went there, I didn't speak Hungarian or Czech or anything like that. I spoke German because pretty much everybody did speak that language there, the people I was dealing with. So kind of what I would do, keep healthy, keep learning, and keep straight. Don't go to excess, okay? That's the big one. And watch yourself on the internet. I'm just telling you, maybe it's a secret, but employers want to know what you were doing, and it's an easy way to find out. And if you're posting stupid pictures, you're not going to get the job. If you're making comments that are out of order, you're not going to get the job. We're in a multicultural society. You got to respect everybody around you. So be careful. Other questions?
Scared straight out there. What's your perspective on renewable energy? Mr. Oil and Gas Man.
Yeah. Only 15 minutes left of this. I would have trouble covering it. Ladies and gentlemen, we will have renewable energy. The problem with renewable energy is something called rateability. What does that mean? it means the electricity has to be on all the time. Now, Germany, West Germany, now the whole Germany, more, I think, than any other country, has gone the renewable route. Sadly, this summer, the sun didn't shine and the wind didn't blow. And Germany is now using more coal than they have at any time in their history. What is the greatest pollutant in terms of CO2? Coal. There's nothing, oh, we're going to do everything. And China is by far the largest coal consumer in the world and still building coal-fired power plants. I'm a fan of renewables. I'm in early planning stages of a 1,000-acre solar operation, hooking it up to a hydrogen operation, which got a lot of government support, which is, you can't do it without it. It's an interesting project. But what should the country really be doing? We're going to have to close all the coal-fired power plants. That's going to annoy people in Pennsylvania, Kentucky, and West Virginia. We've got to find a way to take care of that. It's very funny. The two principal power plants supplying Washington, D.C. are coal-fired power plants. And yet, Washington says, well, we've got to have power. Everybody else should, do something else. I think we can substitute, to some degree, natural gas for coal. Natural gas is a hydrocarbon, but about 35–40% less CO2 emissions. We can sequester CO2. Nukes. We had Chernobyl. Badly managed, badly run, early stage nuclear power plant. More than half of our Navy runs on nuclear power safely and has for a long time. We can certainly bring in some more nukes. Simple thing, we probably have some chemists in the audience, and some of you may have gone to Greece or seen pictures of the Greek islands. And they have these buildings that are all painted white. Now, why are they painted white? Because they don't need so much air conditioning then. And there's been a new paint just recently brought to market, or being brought to market, which is far superior than any white paint that has ever been made. Paint every roof in air-conditioned heavy areas. Lots of things we could do to improve the environment, and very little sensible policy coming out of Washington, D.C. Hydrocarbons will always have a role in our society. You may not know it, but the raw ingredients for virtually all the drugs that are currently being made come out of chemicals which come out of the hydrocarbon industry. So we're not going to see the end of the hydrocarbon industry, but certainly we should make great strides on renewable fuels. There are parts of our country that could really do very well with that. Probably the best company is NextEra. That used to be Florida Power and Light. They're the biggest producer today of renewable fuels in the United States. So we're going to get there. It's going to take longer, and we need a more thoughtful government approach to it, and that's got to include, I'm afraid, nuclear, even though I don't know any nuclear. Any other questions?
Full portfolio. I better give somebody else a chance. And you're like 40% into the room. That's good.
How's it going? My name is Liam. I had a question on who is your mentor and how important do you think it is to have a mentor, like somebody to look up to?
I'm a really unique situation. I've probably had 5 mentors in my life. The guy that ran the first company, Ludwig Gesselson. He lives a quarter of a mile, or lived a quarter of a mile from here. Great guy. And he really helped me along. Guy whose name you may have heard before, Leon Hess. He's long passed away, and so was Mr. Gesselson. He was enormously helpful to me over the years. He was a guy I traveled very often in the early years to Africa. And I spent time in South Africa. And there was a man named Harry Oppenheimer. He ran the Anglo-American Corporation. His cousin, Sir Philip, ran De Beers. And that was Southern Africa, the combination of Anglo. And he was an interesting guy because you'll remember there was apartheid in South Africa, certainly into the 1960s, for quite some time thereafter. Harry Oppenheimer was the founder of the Progressive Party, the only anti-apartheid party in South Africa, and he got the first person elected, Helen Suzman, and that was a tremendous thing. And South Africa emerged from that with 2 people. Of course, Mandela, who I had the privilege of meeting, and Bishop Tutu. Yeah, Bishop Tutu. Both unfortunately passed away. Both great men. If you can find somebody to be a mentor, yes, it will help you along the way. But at the end of the day, mentors really identify people who want to really work hard and can bring something to the party. They don't want to mentor somebody who's, oh, well, I got this job today, I'm going to leave and, whatever. That's not the game. You got to push hard, and if you could find somebody. So, yeah, I had a lot of help along the way. When I met Mr. Oppenheimer in South Africa, I was acting as they called it a PA, a personal assistant to a guy by the name of Charles Engelhardt. A very odd set of circumstances. But, knowing those people, finding them, that's a great thing. And boy, there's a lot of them around New York. So there's more potential mentors in New York than there are anyplace else in the United States. So go find one. And, that will be a great thing for your career. Other questions? We're coming to the end of this.
Right, yes.
There've been no trick questions.
Hello, my name is Tatiana. I'm a freshman finance major. When looking for someone to work with or do business with, what are some personality traits or skills that you take into consideration?
Look, in terms of personality, I want somebody who enjoys what they're doing. And I give you that one, maybe the last piece of advice. Whatever it is that you're going to choose to do, you better enjoy it, because you won't do it well if you don't kind of have a love for it. So whether you're working in the environmental field, whether you're working in science, whether you're working in education, part of the military, something I didn't mention, but you should know, working in the service of God as a member of the clergy, particularly that one. Boy, you got to really love it to want to do it because they don't pay you so low now. And you got to love it. That's the first thing. So you're looking for somebody that works hard. And I tell you one other thing. You're looking for someone who treats everyone around them well. I tell you a funny story. So when I went to Europe, they sat me down in London as a very young man for 6 weeks of training. And at the time, the telephone switchboard in London was these plugs you see the old film. That's the switchboard they have. And the operators, I have to tell you, tended to, I think they listened into some of the conversation. I'm in Europe about 2 years, and I had always, the operators were a bunch of very nice ladies. And whenever I would go to London from Switzerland, I'd bring a big box of chocolates for the operators. And, you know, I put it in there. They loved that. Nobody ever brought them chocolates before. I had a guy who was trying to sabotage me. And I got a call from one of the operators, a true story. And she says, Tommy, that's how they refer to me. I just wanted to tell you that, you know, Mr. So-and-so, he's been having conversations about you, which are not very nice. And I took action. By the way, when somebody is trying to knock you down, my advice is knock them down before they knock you down. This is a very, which is what I did. But why did somebody help me out? I always treated anybody who had a position below me better than I treated the people above me. Because the people below you, they really make things work. They really know what's going on. So keep that in mind when you're going. You see it in the investment banks, particularly when I the crazy circumstance of becoming vice chairman of Solomon Brothers, which was a little nuts. And I saw the way the more senior people treated the new incoming people. And I thought to myself, that's stupid. You're trying to retain somebody, you're training somebody, you're treating them that way. Don't ever do that. The person at the bottom should get the best treatment from you. And if you want to be mad at somebody, be mad at the person above you, which is probably not too advisable either, but you can work on that. So, look, I want to thank all of you for listening to me today. I want to tell you again, you're in a unique place. The city, the opportunities, you're going to get a good education here. Take the high moral road when you can. And I'm not telling you that as a parent or as a religious concept or anything like that. I'm telling you, that'll help you succeed. And when you do succeed, I hope there are 3, 4, 5 people in this room who, I don't know, 30 years from now, stand at some podium in a bigger room and a more opulent room and give back. If you really make it, and some of you are really gonna make it. And I'm not talking about making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year. I'm talking about somebody really going out there and gobbling it up. You know, making a few $100 million. And maybe by that time it has to be billions, you know, I don't know, trillions, who knows. Give some of it back. Give it to things you care about. don't give it, this is terrible to say, don't give it to the Metropolitan Opera or the Museum of Art. Give it to people who need it. You know, Manhattan needs support. That's why I give it to Manhattan. We also have a program. I think we're going to wind up with 100 high school students in Catholic high schools around the tri-state area, where we pay 80% of their tuition. And those are the sons and daughters of policemen, firemen, and nurses that we give to. We give to the less fortunate. But give to things that you think are meaningful. And if you want to give to the Metropolitan Opera, give to it. But, you know, for me, help people. On that note, I've got to go home and cook dinner.